The JSE drivers today, I mean, what were they? The market looked like it was pretty stable, and then towards the evening or late afternoon, 0.5% down.
It was all about Sasol today. I mean, if you look at volumes on the market, Sasol traded as much as Naspers. You know, it traded almost 17, 18% today, and the third biggest volume was Anglo-American at only 3.5%. So I think the market very much focused on the news from Sasol, particularly around the cost overruns at Lake Charles. Remember, this is the second cost overrun. So this is effectively, you know, the third increase that we've had from the original budgeted. I think it was about $9.5 billion. We're now close to $13 billion, so about 30% more. Going through some of the drivers for that cost overrun, it was largely engineering defects, inaccurate estimation. You know, some of the heat exchangers had failed. You know, these are things that you would expect them to have got right. So the market a bit concerned. The share was down 13%. It settled at 375, I think.
It wasn't a pretty day if you were a Sasol shareholder. I mean, my question is, we saw that 13% slump. You're suggesting to me that as expected, as I thought it would be, because this was in the making. We saw this coming in the US. The depth of that cost override was much more than expected.
Much more than expected. I mean, initially, Sasol, when they did the project, they expected to get a return from that in the double digits, so close to 10%. When they revised the costs for the first time, that brought it down to about 7.5%. Right now, it's sitting at 6%. And remember, they've raised funding at close to 5%. So there's only really 1% of margin in it for them on a balance sheet that's already stretched. And, you know, inevitably, they've had to push out some of their earning forecast. Some of their deleveraging forecasts on the balance sheet have gone from 2021 to 2023. So, you know, I think a little bit of nervousness from shareholders. Whether it deserved a 13% smack, I'm not so sure. But then again, as you mentioned, the oil price wasn't helping today, down 1.75%. So I think that may have also triggered a little bit of a sell-off there.
All right, so that was the giant on the markets today. But I'm just wondering, we had a fairly significant, important day in Parliament today, and you hear various opinions from business and across the spectrum. Any suggestion to you that the currency, bonds, or anything else on the market had some sort of movement in reaction to this?
You know, the currency largely is being driven by what's happening internationally. You know, particularly with the dollar. So there's certainly a risk-off movement. If you look at the 10-year US yield, is now currently below 2.4%. The dollar index is getting stronger, and the dollar is strengthening against, you know, the euro and the pound. So I think that's been the main driver of the currency. And that notwithstanding, I think we would have seen the rand a lot stronger today, probably close to, you know, 14.20, you know, 14.10. Because I think certainly the announcement that David Mabuza was going to wait until you know, the ANC Integrity Commission cleared him of any wrongdoing before he stood for Parliament. I think that was a very responsible thing, and investors would have looked favourably at that. Also, Nomvula Mokonyane, you know, her decision not to stand for Parliament, I think was something that investors would have liked. But you know, we'll have to see on post-Saturday, on Sunday, or Monday, whenever the new cabinet is announced, particularly around the finance minister. There's been a lot of talk about that. I think the market is probably adopting a little bit of a wait-and-see attitude towards, you know, who the people are going to be that are going to drive this turnaround in the economy.
Especially in those key positions. All right, so Tiger Brands, the maker of Tastic Rice and Jungle Oats, they simply can't seem to shake off this listeria effects on them. I mean, revenue.
I thought you were going to say Enterprise Polony as well.
But I mean, look, it's not just that. There are international effects on this share as well, isn't there? Yeah.
So, you know, if you look at Tiger Brands, the results that have come out, I think are an indication of the sector. Pioneer Food Group came out early on this week. So did Rhodes Food. There's a common theme. their input cost inflation is running much higher than what inflation they can get out of selling prices. So fuel costs. Remember, these are really conversion companies. They convert raw materials, into food products. And, the logistics plays a big role. Raw material prices play a big role. The logistics value chain is also very important. So in terms of Tigers, Pioneer, as well as Rhodes Foods Group, you saw that, costs are running at, close to 7-8%, but they're only able to get 4-5% worth of selling price inflation because of the economy. The consumer is not in a strong position. Retailers are under pressure to cut prices, and invariably, the food producers that sit between sort of farmers and retailers are the ones that inevitably get squeezed. So I think you saw that coming through with Tiger's results today.
And all the reason why it's so important to see what the Reserve Bank governor says tomorrow on interest rates. I mean, we know that it's likely not to move, but the tone of this address tomorrow will be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I think we'll be looking for a very dovish tone, especially coming into a much anticipated election. I think we got the result that everybody kind of was hoping for, certainly from the investors' perspective, an ANC majority with stronger opposition. The concern around a rising interest rate environment right now, given where the economy is, given where state-owned enterprises are in terms of funding, is not going to be a good one. So at the last MPC, we saw the Reserve Bank governor change his tone from generally a hawkish one to a slightly dovish one. We're hoping that this time around the announcements are a little bit more dovish. But of course, you can never take an interest rate increase off the table as well.
Indeed. Nelson, thanks very much indeed for coming in at this hour. Appreciate it. So that's Nelson Nair from SASFIN.